Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Samma sankappo ananda bhavito bahulikato raga vinaya pariyosano hoti. Dosa vinaya pariyosano hoti. Moha vinaya pariyosano hoti iti. Dear Dhamma friends, we are discussing mainly Noble Eightfold Path, and we have used Brahmana Sutta as a kind of a theme. And there, probably you can remember, there's an incident happened. It actually has happened in the Sravasti while Venerable Ananda was in Pindapata, arms round. There is when Brahmin Janusoni going through the city of Sravasti using a completely white chariot. So there the chariot is completely white, the horses used are also white, and Brahmin Janusoni's complete clothes are also white, and likewise everything was white. So people have noticed this and they were quite surprised and they were quite happy about it, and they were mentioning, so this is like a divine vehicle. And then this incident has noticed by Venerable Ananda, and after returning from Pindapata, he mentioned this to the Buddha. And he mentioned that he has seen this sort of sight where Brahmin Janusoni was going through Sravasti using a completely white color chariot and even wearing completely white color clothes. And people were quite happy about it, and they were telling it is like a divine vehicle. So the suggestion made by Venerable Ananda is that is it possible for the Buddha to connect this with the Dhamma? Is there any kind of a such vehicle available in the Dhamma? Then Buddha mentioned Imassevako etang ananda ariyassa atthangikassa maggassa adivachanam. Now this divine vehicle is a synonym for the Noble Eightfold Path. Brahmayanang itipi, Dhammayanang itipi, Anuttaro Sangama Vijayo itipi. So this is a divine vehicle, this is a Dhamma vehicle, and this is the utmost vehicle that is used during the battle with the defilements in order to cross over to the other shore. So therefore Buddha sort of give a kind of an analogy between this vehicle, the divine vehicle, with the Noble Eightfold Path. And then we went on discussing about Sammaditthi, the right view, and there we recognize it has two types or twofold right view, the mundane type of right view and the supramundane type of right view. And then actually we completed that, and then last week we went on to Samma Sankappa, that is the second path factor, that is called the right intention. And there also Buddha mentioned in this Brahmana Sutta that if one develops Samma Sankappa, if one develops right intention, so it also causes to eliminate lust, raga vinaya pariyosano hoti, also helps to eliminate dosa, the hatred, also help to eliminate the moha, the delusion. Now having said that, then we went to discuss about the twofold Samma Sankappa, that is mundane type of Samma Sankappa and the supramundane type of Samma Sankappa. Katamocha bhikkave Miccha Sankappo. So Buddha actually has informed or explained about the Miccha Sankappa, the other side, that is the wrong intention. So there are three types of wrong intentions. The Kama Sankappa related to various sensual pleasures, and then the Vyapada Sankappa, ill will, and then Vihimsa Sankappa, having sort of harmful thoughts regarding another person. So these three types of wrong way of thinking, wrong intentions, have to be removed or avoided in the mind, and instead one has to develop the right kind of intentions. So that right intention is called Samma sankappo sasavo punya bhagyo upadi vepakko. So there is a one type of samma sankappa, right intention, which is still with taints, but it is coming under the wholesome aspect, and it is delivering or providing good results or good say assets. Now suppose if one has good intentions, so he may conduct good actions, and as a result of that he may get good results. So it may be in this life itself or on another life. So likewise this samma sankappa is twofold. The first is the mundane type of samma sankappa, and they are the complete opposite of those miccha sankappa is mentioned. So instead of kama sankappa, one is developing nekkhamma sankappa. So rather than having sensual desires, so one is now trying to have renunciative thoughts, sort of donation, sort of letting go, renunciation related thoughts are now trying to develop. And then abhyapada sankappa, the various thoughts related to loving kindness. So instead of ill will, one is now developing loving kindness. One is trying to be friendly and having loving kindness thoughts. So that is the second aspect. And then instead of harmful thoughts, one may be developing more kind of a compassionate thoughts, and that is coming as ahimsa, avihimsa sankappa. So these three kinds of samma sankappa are to be developed. Now still one basically gets some idea from the right view, the sammaditthi. Sammaditthi is the one giving the correct direction, and accordingly now one is having good intentions. So instead of having too much say sensual desires in order to gratify one's senses, now one is trying to restrain one's senses. And again one is selective about what one is seeing through eyes, hearing through ears, and smelling through the nose, and again what one is tasting through the tongue, and one is enjoying through the body. So likewise these five kinds of sensual chords or sensual desires, one is now restraining. And again now one is trying to in a way to tame one's mind. And now whatever the intention he has related to this kind of renunciation, this kind of compassion, this kind of loving kindness is coming under the samma sankappa. Now Buddha does not stop there, and then he is taking us to the next level. That's the supramundane type of samma sankappa. So there what he mentioned is that any kind of right intention which is happening in one's mind who is in the path, that means that one is now practicing, one is now mindful about what one is thinking. So he is aware of what is thinking rather than he become a victim of the thinking. Now he is more and more trying to be aware of what one is thinking. So, and again what are the thoughts happening in the mind, and then what are the intentions happens in the mind, and any kind of a mental focus happen in the mind, any kind of a mental fixity happens in the mind, and direct in the mind, where the mind is being directed. And as a result of that, by having such kind of thoughts, what one is talking. So all this comes under the kind of a developing level of right intention. Now it is not simply one is trying to be a good person, rather now trying to develop wisdom. So this samma sankappa and samma ditthi both comes under the wisdom category, and therefore these both factors go hand in hand. So samma ditthi gives the proper direction, and then the samma sankappa accordingly have good intentions. Now in this situation actually he is now being aware of what are the thoughts happening. So therefore samma sati, right mindfulness, is always available. And based on that right mindfulness, now one is selective, one is aware what is going on in the mind. As a result of that, he is now trying to avoid the wrong thoughts, wrong intentions Instead, one is trying to occupy one's mind with the correct thoughts, right intentions. So therefore the right effort is also there. Samma Vayama is also there. So Samma Ditti has given the correct direction. Samma Sati helps to establish mindfulness, and one is now aware of one's mind. And he is now trying to avoid wrong intentions and to develop correct intentions. Therefore, Samma Vayama, right effort, is also involved. Now, there actually we have taken one sutta last time, that is Dvedaha Vitakka Sutta, in order to explain you further that how Bodhisattva has in a way developed his mind. So there we discussed that he actually categorized his way of thinking, his as a Bodhisattva, what are the thoughts came to in his mind. So there he recognized sometimes the sensual thoughts, so he categorized them as Akusala Vitakka. And there are ill will thoughts, and then he categorized them as the Akusala Vitakka. And when there are harmful thoughts, he categorized them as the Akusala Vitakka. So as a result of that, he understood, when he understand that these kinds of thoughts, intentions, are harmful to himself, harmful to the others, harmful to both ends, and again it is detrimental to one's wisdom, and it is causing suffering, and it is taking one away from Nibbana. So when one is recognizing that sort of consequences, danger, so Buddha mentioned that he was able to eliminate those wrong thinking. Now he do some sort of a replacement. Instead of thinking wrong thoughts, now he is trying to have good thoughts. So the Nekkhamma Sankappa, Nekkhamma Vitakka, the renunciative thoughts he is now thinking. Loving kindness thoughts he is thinking. And then the thoughts related to harmlessness, so compassion, he is now thinking. And he is saying that those are beneficial to oneself, beneficial to others, beneficial to both sides. And it is causing to develop wisdom, and it doesn't cause any sort of mental agony or mental suffering. And again, it is helping ones to calm down one's mind. So it is closer to the Nibbana. So therefore, he encourages that kind of right thinking. And having done that, he is now refining his mindfulness, he is now refining his mind. And after he is continuing like this, now his mind is fairly occupied with these kind of correct thoughts. And there he make a very interesting observation. That is, when his mind is occupied with these kind of right thoughts for continuously, for several days, so many days, now he feels some sort of a tiresomeness. So he feels tired because the mind is constantly thinking. Now he has an idea, how about if I am able to completely calm down my mind, just keep the mind closer to the body without thinking. So this is a very interesting point he is referring here. Now he is deciding, Soko aham bhikkhave ajjattameva chittang santapemi sannithademi ekodin karomi samadhami. Now he is making his mind completely be with the body, without inner chatter, without any thinking, and he is able to concentrate his mind. It is now well collected, and like that he is having some sort of a singleness of the mind. Now he is saying this is more powerful, this is more sublime than even thinking. Now with that, I like to come to today's section. So there's another sutta, that is the next sutta after the Dvedaha Vitakka Sutta. So this is called Vitakka Santhana Sutta, available in Majjhima Nikaya. And there Buddha further elaborates different kinds of mechanisms or strategies, how one can in a way restrain one's mind. So the first method he is telling is to do this replacement. So whenever kind of thoughts are arising related to some sort of sensual desire, and that those signs, those nimittas are causing sensual desire, ill will, harmless thoughts, etc. So now he is trying to replace those signs with the good wholesome sign. Say for example, if you are having lustful thoughts, instead of having allowed the mind to occupy with various lustful, say, pictures, signs, now one is assumed developing Asubha Bhavana. He is now replacing the sensual desire related signs into the loathsomeness related sign. Now he is reflecting the loathsome aspects of the body. He is memorizing. Say for example, he is now developing Asubha Bhavana, so it's a kind of a replacement. Say for example, if one is having ill will, hateful thoughts, now those are the nimittas, those are the signs at the moment occupied with the mind. So one has recognized that. Now he is trying to replace that with loving kindness. So he develops loving kindness meditation, metta bhavana. So this is a replacement. So this replacement is one strategy, therefore we can use in order to develop our mind. So if we occupy our mind with lustful thoughts and those related signs, ill will and those related signs, so the mind becomes agitated, and again mind become burning. So there are many adverse effects. So instead of doing that, now one is trying to replace those thoughts with the loathsomeness related signs and the loving kindness related signs. So according to the situation. Now that is one scenario that Buddha is mentioning. And then whenever the unwholesome kinds of thoughts are going on in the mind, the other method Buddha recommend here is the understanding of the danger. So whenever, if suppose you are thinking more and more about various ill will, hateful thoughts, so if you are continuing, you start to burn. So now you are burning with anger, and probably you even can start to blame another person, can even use harsh words, filthy words, and even one can get on to attack another person, hit another person. So likewise, if you are continuing this way of ill will, hateful thoughts, so it is harmful to oneself and harmful to another person. So likewise, one is reflecting about the danger. So therefore Buddha mentioned, so whenever one's mind is occupied with these ill will thoughts or any other sensual thoughts and deluded thoughts, so one has to understand these repercussions, these dangers, and when one is having understanding, so those thoughts may be eliminated. So that is the second method. And then there's another method Buddha mentioned, that is called Assatyamanasikhara. So one is trying to completely stop paying attention to those thoughts. Say for example, you are looking at something, say some person, another person, and that by looking at him, assume that you become more and more agitated. Your mind become angry. You become sort of having sort of resentment, and you understand that. Now you are aware. Now the mind is starting to become angry. So instead of looking at that person, suppose you are able to turn your head and to look at something else, or just to stop looking at it at all. Now this is called Assatyamanasikhara. So instead of you are paying attention to this whatever the selected person or even a kind of an object, so you stop looking at it. Similarly, you can stop hearing, you can stop using the other senses. So instead of continuing, so you do kind of a adverting to something else, and you are not paying attention. So you stop paying attention to this particular sign, because that is the cause. And you understood, if I am continuing to look at, if I am continuing to think like this, if I am continuing to pay attention like this, so it is causing suffering. It is causing some sort of agitation in the mind. So therefore you stop that completely and you stop paying attention. So this is another strategy Buddha is mentioning here. And the other method, the fourth one, which Buddha mentioned here, is whenever thoughts are going on in the mind, so rather than simply being driven by those thoughts, you are trying to look at the root of those thoughts, how they have propagated or how they have formed at the very beginning. So this is also an interesting point. So typically what happens is, so the initial stages are quite happening quickly, and we start to in a way promote that thinking, and now the thinking machine starts, and ultimately it is driving very fast, and we become a victim of that thinking. So it's a kind of an obsession going on in the mind. Now you can't stop it. You are kind of a victim of that process of thinking. So this is the kind of a proliferation. Papancha sanya sankha samudacharanti. So this is the statement available in the Madhupindika Sutta. We'll discuss that also in the future. Now there Buddha mentioned, so the person who at the beginning involved in thinking now becomes some sort of a helpless victim of that same thinking. And now, so before coming to that level, are you able to look back? Are you able to recognize the beginning of thinking? What are the causes? How it has began? So this is like going backward and going to the source using one's Yoniso-manasikara. So this is the fourth method that Buddha is mentioning. So if one is able to do like that, so then you will understand it is all this thinking become somewhat useless. So it doesn't have any core. There is no any kind of an essence. There is nothing substantial. So therefore this understanding also quite a very interesting one and very powerful one. So rather than you think that I am so and so, so this is I am thinking, rather you look back and go to the beginning and understand how this whole thinking has started. So if you are able to recognize that, then you can laugh at yourself. So even though now it appears like a devil, a kind of a demon, at the beginning it was nothing. It is simply a couple of thoughts, maybe a couple of signs, marks, and ultimately we are the ones who have constructed this whole illusion. So therefore this understanding is a very powerful understanding, and therefore one is losing one's any kind of fear about these thoughts, obsession. So rather one will understand, so these are quite illusory and there is nothing substantial. So we are the ones strengthened. So like that there are many insights available in this process. So this is the fourth process or fourth strategy Buddha is mentioning. The last strategy is very much using the effort. So if none of these methods are helping, they are not giving successful results, Buddha mentioned, just use your own willpower and constrain your mind, crush the mind, and crunch your teeth and try to stop that thinking at all. So these kind of different methods Buddha mentioned, and there Buddha mentioned, if you are doing like this, whatever the thoughts which is related to say sensual desires, which is related to the ill will, which is related to delusion, will be eliminated, can be eliminated. And again one is able to keep one's attention more concerned about the body. So that is kaya-gata sati, where those say harmful thinking is able to eliminate. So mind become quiet, calm, and more connected with the body. And then actually that such a mind can be further developed, and such a say concentrated mind can be further used to understand various processes available in the body. Say you do dhatu manasikara, the element meditation, you do vedananupassana, the mindfulness related to the feelings. Likewise, so further and further you can enhance your wisdom, and therefore one is now having some sort of a control over one's thinking. Whenever one wants to think, he is able to think. Whenever he wants to stop thinking, he has the skill to stop it completely. So this is a very interesting point. So he is kind of a master of thinking. He will think whatever thought he wishes to think, and he will not think any thought that he does not want to think. So likewise, he is having some sort of mastery over one's mind. So it is not that we are trying to completely stop thinking. So whenever it is necessary to think, whenever you understand it is beneficial, whenever you think that is you need to do some sort of planning, designing, projections, etc. So you can do it, and you are very well aware of it. And once it is completed, you are able to completely stop the mind, completely stop the thinking. So that kind of a mastery is mentioned in this sutta. And that actually Buddha mentioned helps to eliminate any kind of a sangyojana, any kind of a fetter, and able to eliminate the conceit. And using that, one is able to completely eliminate suffering. He has severed craving, flung off the fetters, and with the complete penetration of conceit, he has made an end of suffering. Now you can understand it's a kind of a gradual process. So it's a gradual process where different levels can be understood. So these different levels, so different kinds of eliminations of wrong thinking, is further elaborated in Pansudohobaka Sutta, which is available in Anguttara Nikaya. Let me give a little summary of that. So there are again Buddha mentioned that the defilements are available in many different categories or many different levels, and actually he giving a kind of an analogy between the soil purification. And if one wants to have gold, then it is not immediately available. So you have to find kind of a gold mine, and there is what is available is also impure soil, and you have to get that soil and has to use kind of filtering mechanism to remove those dust particles, say sand particles, etc. So you can have somewhat filtered soil now. And after having that, actually you have to further filter. So you have to do some sort of washing, going through various processes, filtering processes, and you are doing another second stage of filtering, second stage of purification. And after that, say you do even fanning, you do various other processes in order to further filter, further purify. And after that, suppose you do kind of melting, and you are using furnaces and etc. to this whole purification process. Then suppose you have to some extent, still the gold may be brittle. Now you are subjecting it to several other kind of chemical processes, and then say it is becoming pure gold, which can be used to say generate or make jewelry or whatever it is. So likewise, kind of a gradual purification process is available in this gold purification. So Buddha giving this analogy, he mentioned that some similar process is available in this mind development as well. So the middling kind of defilements are the ones called Kama Vitakka, Vyapada Vitakka, Vihinsa Vitakka, which we have already mentioned. So after one is able to eliminate those unwholesome kind of thoughts, now you even have very refined kinds of thoughts. So they appear like quite righteous. So that is the problem. So one is called Jnati Vitakka. Suppose you are developing mindfulness, you are now in your sitting session, and you having a very good concentration, and say you are quite happy about that sitting, and while in the middle, suppose you are thinking about your children or your parents, your husband, your wife, your friends. Now immediately a thought comes, so why not I teach this to my friends? Why not I ask my parents also to participate in this session, in this retreat? Why not I ask my husband, my wife, my children also to participate in this section, in this session or in this retreat? So likewise, now you are having thoughts related to your relatives. Now these thoughts are appearing very correct, quite righteous, and you feel like it is your duty to help them and to sort of advise them, invite them also to the path of the Dhamma. So these thoughts appear quite righteous. Now assume that you are thinking again and again about these, and ultimately what happens, probably your mind itself may be telling, no, you are not going to do like that, and they may not accept your word, and they are sort of quite say stubborn. So likewise, now you are getting some sort of resistance in your mind. Now it can even lead to hatred. It can even lead to ill will. So these subtle thoughts, therefore, has a tendency or potential to bring us again back to that middling kind of defilements. And similarly, one can have Janapada Vitakka. Say, that means you are thinking about your, say, region, your city, your country. Now you have a lot of thoughts related to your country. Say in Sri Lanka nowadays, this COVID threat is there. So when you are thinking about the country, probably you may get depressed. People are dying daily, thousands are being infected. So a lot of things are going on, and the various vaccination processes are there. People are talking this and that about that. So many issues are there. So you become depressed, you become somewhat upset about all these things. And this thinking at the beginning appear like correct, righteous. So that is the difficulty there. And on the other hand, and there may be thoughts related to your reputation. So what would be the others' say kind of an attitude about myself? Are they recognize me as a good person? Do they have a correct understanding about myself? So you are concerned about your reputation. So that is another kind of thoughts available in the mind. And maybe even thoughts related to the health. So those are called Amaravitakka. So nowadays, due to the pandemic, so probably you are quite concerned about the health. So there may be so many thoughts related to the health. So those are other thoughts. And maybe sometimes related to various requisites. How can I gain fame? How can I gain a lot of say material benefits? So likewise, there may be thoughts related to gain and fame. Labha sakkara patisanyutta vitakka. So likewise, now Buddha explained those kinds of subtle thoughts, subtle vitakka. So those at the beginning appear like righteous. So therefore, we don't feel that we need to eliminate them. We don't need to stop them. So therefore, we continue to think. Ultimately, the mind starts in a chatter, and we may even end up in the ill will, lustful thoughts, and harmful thoughts, and ultimately we are in a proliferation. Suppose that one is able to completely eliminate those thoughts as well. Now one doesn't have middling kinds of defilements, one doesn't have subtle defilements, but now there can still be thoughts or thinking related to the Dhamma. So this is another very interesting point Buddha highlights here. So when a capable bhikkhu, a capable practitioner was able to abandon, dispel, terminates all these say middling kinds of defilements and the subtle defilements, even when that has done, there may remain thoughts connected with the Dhamma. Now, while these thoughts are still available, now still you have to put forth effort to suppress them. So, whenever you stop putting that effort, again the Dhamma thoughts so the thoughts related to the Dhamma may popping up. Say you are thinking about a sutta, you are thinking about a sermon, you are thinking about various aspects of the Dhamma. So likewise, so some Dhamma related thoughts can occupy the mind. So therefore you have to maintain an effort. You have to intentionally suppress them. So there Buddha mentioned it is not peaceful. So whatever the samadhi you are currently enjoying is not that peaceful.
It is also not sublime, and it is not gained by full tranquilization. And again, mind has not yet completely attained kind of a unification. And your gain, whatever the concentration at the moment available is with you, is gained by some sort of a suppressing of the defilements. So this is another level of samadhi that Buddha mentioned. Now assume that you are continuing your practice. You are not giving up, you are further developing mindfulness, you are further developing your practice. So one day, there is a chance that you are able to attain kind of a samadhi which is completely peaceful. And this is completely sublime. And it is completely tranquil. And again, it is with complete unification. And you don't need to forcefully suppress any defilements. So defilements are very much like gone very far. So now you are maintaining such a undefiled, very pure, very sublime, peaceful mind effortlessly. So this Buddha mentioned is fairly refined, fairly sublime. So this is another level of samadhi Buddha mentioned. And this samadhi is capable of realizing more, deep aspects of the reality. And such mind can be inclined towards the elimination of, asavas, these influxes. Because this is a very refined mind, completely pure mind, and one has a very capable mind, and that mind can be used to eliminate, very refined defilements like fetters, like the influxes, asavas. And there's another interesting point available in the Nibbedika Sutta. There Buddha mentioned actually various pleasures available in the world. Whatever the beautiful things, beautiful scenario, beautiful scenes, sounds, tastes, etc., they are not the real problem. But the problem is with the lustful intention available in one's mind. And therefore, by recognizing that, by understanding that, one simply allows those beautiful things to remain as it is in the world, but one is restraining one's mind. One is removing the desire available in one's mind. So therefore, the practice becomes inverted. Introvert. So rather than you find fault with the others, you are trying to recognize the shortcomings in yourself. Rather than sort of blaming others wearing, some unsuitable clothing, you are trying to restrain your mind. You can't correct the world. Instead, you are trying to remove desire from your own mind. So therefore, the practice becomes introvert. Nate kamayani chitrani loke sankapparago purisassa kamo. Tittanti chitrani tatheva loke atetta dhira vinayanti chanda. This is a very interesting point Buddha points out, where you simply leave aside all these beautiful things. You are not hating them, you are not finding fault with them. Rather, you understand that the problem is in your mind, where your mind is going and attaching with them. Your mind is going and desiring them. So you restrain the mind or develop in the mind so that you don't have such an attachment. You are free from attachment. Even though beautiful things are available, even though you are able to hear various beautiful sounds, songs, melodies, still, if you are able to maintain a peaceful mind, so then it is a developed mind. And so this kind of development has to be further strengthened with the association of good companionship, good friends. So therefore Buddha mentioned, if one is having such good association, one is further improving one's correct intention more and more. Now it is in another level. Now at this level, the practitioner has recognized, has understood a completely peaceful state of mind, which is completely free from attachment, completely free from grasping. It's a very pure state of mind. And it's an effortless state of mind now he is trying to achieve. So after recognizing such pure, peaceful, spacious, grasping free state of mind, now you are developing it with giving more priority to such seclusion in the mind. So now the mind is not associating any desirable sights, sounds, states, etc. Instead, mind has its own freedom. Mind has its own peacefulness. So you are giving more prominence to this peacefulness rather than finding refuge in the pleasurable things, or rather than trying to get rid of the unlike or undesirable things. So you find refuge in the middle. You find refuge in the emptiness. You find refuge in the peacefulness, stillness. So there are another level of development, another level of insight or vipassana is mentioned here. So this Buddha mention happens mainly because of the association of good friends, kalyana mittata. Katanchananda bhikkhu kalyana mitto kalyana sahayo kalyana sampavanko ariyang attangam maggam bhaveti. And how, Ananda, does a bhikkhu who has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path? Samma sankappam bhaveti viveka nisitang, viraga nisitang, nirodha nisitang, vassagga parinami. So actually we mentioned this even to the samma ditti. Samma ditting bhaveti viveka nisitang, viraga nisitang, nirodha nisitang, vassagga parinami. So all the path factors, now one is developing, giving prominence to the seclusion in the mind. So you are more valuing or appreciating the seclusion in the mind. Mind doesn't associate any sight, sound, taste, etc. Rather, mind has its own freedom. So this freedom, this seclusion, this aloneness is more appreciated and more emphasized, and you are giving more prominence to that. And whatever the sight, sounds happening, you are quite dispassionate towards them. You are not going after them. And again, the mind has come to a natural cessation. So whatever the conditioned phenomena arising, so you allow them to naturally cease, naturally fade away. So you are not suppressing them. Rather, you understand, you have a good understanding now. Now they all are quite impermanent. They simply come and go. So whenever something arises, so you are aware of it. But you are not trying to reject it, you are not trying to suppress it, or you are not trying to grasp it. Simply you are mindful about it. As a result of that, it starts to fade away. So this is a kind of a loving of natural cessation. And vassagga parinaming, where your mind is now attuned towards letting go, maturing in release. So this actually has to be developed more and more, further and further, and it's in a way we can say a long process, and till one has completely liberated mind, completely freedom of mind. And therefore we can summarize. So whatever the learning that we do, whatever the discussion that we do, whatever the lending of our ear what we do, if we have any discussion, if we listen to any Dhamma sermon, if we did any references, if we did any reading, whatever the effort we put forth, so that is for the emancipation of mind through non-clinging. So whenever you are able to achieve such kind of a non-clinging state of mind, so that is in a way the culmination. So that crux has to be further developed. So in the sense that you should be able to maintain such state, and you should not doubt about such thing. We are not looking forward beyond that. Rather, this is the state that we have to maintain as much as possible. And it is better we recognize what are still the problems, or what are the threats to this non-clinging nature of the mind. So those threats are to be recognized. So mostly you may recognize those threats are the still available: raga, dosa, moha, lust, ill will, and the delusion. So as much as possible, therefore the lust, ill will and delusion has to be eliminated. Then you are able to maintain this non-grasping, unassociated, non-clinging nature of mind more and more. And that is the, in a way, Buddha highlighting here in this Kathavattu Sutta, that this is the crux of the teaching. This is the crux of the practice. So this non-attached or unattached state of mind. Anupada chittassa vimukho. So with that note, I like to conclude today's Sutta teaching. Now I open the session for questions.
Thank you, Bente. So if there are any new friends joining us for the first time, you may ask your questions privately via the chat, or you may raise your hand, and then we will unmute you and you can ask your question directly. So Bente, I had a question. It happened just today. So I noticed, as I was going about my day-to-day, that an unwholesome thought, or a series of unwholesome thoughts arose, and it created this momentum, which then just pushed me to act according to those unwholesome thoughts. So everything happened really quickly. It was probably in a matter of, a minute or two that all of the thoughts as well as action all happened. And so there obviously was some level of mindfulness of knowing that, this whole process as it was unfolding. And this may go back to maybe a lot of what you were saying today. My question is, how do I weaken kind of this, force that just, always is happening throughout our lives, and have kind of better control of our mind and then obviously our actions, so that there's always, not just a mindfulness, but this restraint that you talked about, Bente.
Yeah. So that's why, it is not an easy task. Now, this is a kind of a practice. That is why we got to train our mind. So we have a tendency to get angry. We have a tendency to become lustful. We have a tendency to get entangled. So that's a kind of a tendency available in the mind. So we are used to operate like that for long time. So therefore, we are more used to do like that. The mind is used to act like this. So therefore, that kind of habitual tendency is so strong. So as you have mentioned, so even though now you understand quite correctly, it is harmful. It is not correct. It is not correct to act like this. But still that inner power or this inner tendency is so powerful, it is overpowering your that correct intention. So that is possible. But anyway, you are doing it with awareness. Anyway, you are doing it with mindfulness. So that is why some sort of a regret happens in your mind. Now, suppose you are not a practitioner, you are not quite, concerned about your mind at all. You don't consider about any ethics or any sort of precepts. So then people are simply going and implement whatever they like. So they don't have any sort of regret. They may even enjoy. But on the other hand, when we are trying to develop mindfulness, when we are trying to develop Buddha's teaching, so we get the hiri-ottappa. We get this, what you call ethical kind of shame and fear. So this hiri-ottappa, ethical shame and ethical fear, is actually beneficial. So that will tell us, okay, I shouldn't do this. Whenever something bad is there, unwholesome is there, so we have kind of an inner complaint, you should not do it. it is not suitable to you. So there is, irrespective of another person is there, or another law, or say government law, or any of these things are there, your inner kind of a critic comes and tell you it is not suitable to you, and you become somewhat afraid of doing it, because you understand that the consequences, and you understand that how danger it is. So likewise, this kind of a thing is correct, kind of a corrective measure happens. So whenever we develop mindfulness, whenever you continue our practice, so we can't continue to do wrong things. So our mind start to complain. So therefore slowly we are able to eliminate that completely. So this elimination does not happen immediately. We still mindful, but still we can't stop ourselves. So as you have mentioned, we know it very well, it is wrong, but still we can't stop. But as we are continuing, so we are able to recognize this urge at its early stages. And our mindfulness is so strong, so when we are aware of that, so mindfulness is able to check it. So once we stop that flowing of thoughts, that urge, so once we are able to check it, then we can either advert our mind to something else, or we are able to further understand the danger of this way of thinking, or we can recognize the roots, the beginning of this kind of a thinking, or we can completely pay attention to something else. So, or even we can use our willpowers to stop it. So likewise, many mechanisms are available as we discussed today. So don't worry. So this is a gradual process. So till we have, completely eliminate our, raga, dosa, moha, it is still the potential is there for them to overpower ourselves. So that is the danger. So that is why we have to continue our practice, because with some minor situations we can control ourselves, but with some powerful situations or more tempting situation, we are still unable to control ourselves. So therefore that danger is still with us, so that we need to honestly, humbly have to understand that, and further have to develop so that we are completely free from all these defilements. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante. So today you mentioned about the 5 different ways of dealing with the unwholesome thoughts.
Yeah.
And it goes from kind of more subtle effort to more stronger efforts. So is it a matter of kind of trial and error as to which method or methods you apply? Or is there a direct correlation between the type of defilement versus which method you apply?
Yeah, actually in this particular sutta, which I have referred as the Vitakka Santhana Sutta, Buddha recommend kind of a gradual, or in a way as mentioned in the the sutta. So Buddha asks us to try these techniques one after the other. Giving attention to the sign connected with what is wholesome. Whenever you are having unwholesome thoughts, you are trying to advert it to change your attention to something else. So Buddha asks us to try that first. Like mentioned, if the mind is lustful, you are turning your mind to loathsomeness. If your one's mind is filled with hate, ill will, you are trying to change it to loving kindness. So this is a kind of a replacement technique. If that doesn't work, then Buddha asks us to think about the danger of the ongoing thinking. So where it will lead us. So we understand the danger. Even if that doesn't work, then Buddha asks us to avoid giving any attention. So you try to Assatyamanasikhara, you are try not to think it. Again, now in a way putting effort, bringing up effort to control the mind. And then going backward and seeing the source, how this whole thinking process has started. So, and if any of these doesn't work, then Buddha mentioned to use the complete power or the willpower to in a way crush or constrain one's mind. Now, actually, these different techniques we can try. I mean, time to time, we may be successful at different levels. And actually, as we develop mindfulness is catching the power in a way. So mindfulness become very strong. So there probably you might understand. So whenever defilements are arising, if you are able to quickly be mindful about them, and then say you are paying attention to that thoughts, so that very attention, that very mindfulness is quite capable of fading them away, eliminating them completely. So that is how the mindfulness itself is gaining its power, the Satipatthana. That is what in the Chittanupassana it is mentioned. Say, whenever sensual thought is available, you are aware of the sensual thought. You are not trying to suppress it. Whenever, say, ill will thought is available, you are aware of it. You are not trying to suppress it. But that very awareness, very mindfulness is capable to completely avoid, say, giving food to it or promoting it, now allowing it to naturally cease. So this is the most powerful method, even though it will take a lot of time to develop to this level. So this is the most powerful and most accurate method in a way. And then Buddha mentioned, so you are able to have a mind free from lust, free from ill will, free from loving kindness, free from, say, any kind of loathsomeness aspects and any of this. Now you have touched the kind of the baseline of the mind. You have touched the equanimous region of the mind. So that becomes your dwelling place. That becomes your, say, refuge. More and more you dwell there. Now, whenever a first thought arising related to the sensual desire, that very first thought even can be traced, can be noticed. So, anuppannassa kamachandassa uppado hoti tancha pajanati. So, there was no lust, but now lust is arising. So, even this arising very early stage, initiation can be noticed. So, likewise, it's a kind of a gradual process. So, once the mindfulness is taking the upper hand, so you are in a good shape.
Okay, thank you. So one of the questions that I received is, in my daily activities, if a unskillful thought arises, I can recognize and let go. In meditation, when mind is calm and neutral, I don't recognize thoughts, it is behind the scenes. But if someone is harsh to me and critical at times, I will talk back sharply. How can I prevent this? Thank you.
Yeah, actually, when there are no thoughts, I mean, you can't notice them, definitely. But the potential to generate thoughts is there. So that is where we have to be aware of those influxes, asavas. The potential is there. So when the lustful thoughts are not there, it doesn't mean we are completely free from lust. Temporarily the mind is free from lustful thoughts, but the potential to generate lust is there. So that is why we mention, say, during, say, just to give a simple example, say your mind is now free from lust and you see an old woman. Say if you are a man, say you see an old woman, lust may not arise. Suppose there you see a beautiful girl with all the this and that, and then probably the lust may arise in the mind. So likewise, so when the strong objects are there, when the strong possibilities are there, there's a tendency to arise lust. Similarly, there's a tendency to arise ill will. So that danger we should understand very humbly. So if we overestimate ourselves, probably we might think, okay, now I am completely free from lust. I am completely free from ill will. So that's in a way overestimation. We have to put ourselves into various situations and have to recognize our true situation, true state. So that is why we should never quick to give, say, kind of titles to ourselves. Rather, we better underestimate ourselves and think, okay, still there may be a possibility. there may be a little potential to say pop up various defilements. So let me be humble and watch my mind, guard my mind. So you are, anyway, guarding does not mean that you are suppressing the mind, rather you allow or give some freedom to the mind, allow it to freely move, and while allowing that, you see how it is behaving now, how the fellow is behaving now. Is it well behaved now? Is it having enough wisdom now to tackle any situation? Even with that beautiful girl, is it possible to have a mind free from lust? Or still the mind is going to have lustful thoughts? So that we have to honestly recognize. So we should not underestimate that possibility. So this tendency is there. So therefore we have to be very honest, have to be very diligent about this possibility, and we have to observe how the mind is behaving in a way. So by this observation helps us to slowly eliminate these tendencies. That is why actually the whole practice is taking years, because this complete uprooting of lust, hatred, delusion is not an easy task in a way. Yeah.
Okay, Bhante. And I'd like to invite Renuka to please ask the next question.
Peruan Saranai Bhante, can you hear me?
Yes.
Bhante, I want to repeat the question I asked through the email.
Yeah.
Because I tried to ask this question last week. Actually, my continuous practice, I saw this burning feeling of bad thoughts, as well as I saw this agitated feeling on the good thoughts. It means happy thoughts. Everything I found it like both thoughts, bad or good, gave me heaviness, gave me tiredness, gave me uneasy feeling. So what I did was I was trying to not to get any of those, try to be not to get any of those thoughts, and I tried my best to be without thought, in my mind.
Yeah.
So that was very helpful to me. I saw it is so peaceful, and it's not a bliss like earlier I experienced through the meditation, and this was some kind of peacefulness in the mind.
Yeah.
So, but that there was no overwhelming feeling when I'm in that position, in the state of mind. So I try to be on that as much as possible. But then again, while I'm in there, I could see how thoughts come in. But now this time, it is not bothering me, overwhelming or pushing me into any state. But I could see the thoughts comes and goes, and good thoughts comes and goes, bad thought comes and goes, but nothing is affecting me.
Exactly.
And but I could see that whenever a good thought comes, I was trying to create me there, and then I am in a trouble, then I'm getting attached to it. Then the bad thought comes, still I create myself there, then bad thoughts is happening. So because of that, I thought this myself, Renuka, is created through these thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is no thoughts and no this thing, then I don't have to create, I don't have renuka there. So it's a peaceful thing which is so open to everything. So I thought whether looking at it in that way is it I felt very beneficial for me, but I'm not sure whether I'm again going and catching on to something else which I don't know.
Yeah.
So this is my question, Bhante. So if you could, advise me on this, I would be grateful.
Yeah.
I know you said that be in that nothingness continuously, so I do that, but feeling this nothingness means feeling this no renuka feeling. Is it okay, or the feeling of the freedom? I don't know. I can't explain to you. There's no physical attachments things, but will that be okay?
Yeah.
So that is why my question.
Yeah. So basically, this is quite correct. So as we discussed even today, so Buddha himself has mentioned this in the what you call this Dvedavitaka Sutta, like we discussed today. So there he mentioned, even when the correct thoughts, the wholesome thoughts are continuously thought, your mind is occupied with such thinking, even the wholesome thinking for long time, so it is providing some sort of a tiresomeness. So Buddha mentioned kayo kilameya. That means you feel bodily you feel tired. And kayo kilante chittang uhanyaya. So when the body feels tired, so your mind does not get concentrated. And therefore you are going away from the Nibbana. So that's why Buddha asks us, so why not stop thinking at all and completely rest in that peacefulness? So that is where the Satipatthana is giving more emphasis. So when it comes to Chittanupassana, it is not that we are trying to think the good thoughts. It is not that we are trying to have the best thoughts. And it is not we are trying to suppress the bad thoughts either. Rather, we recognize these thoughts have the nature to arise and pass away. So this is very clearly we should understand. Saragang va chittang saragang chittanti pajanati, vitaragang va chittang vitaragang chittanti pajanati. So whenever there is lustful thought, one recognizes this is a lustful thought. When there is, say, renunciative thoughts, you understand this is a renunciative thought. That's it. So you are having kind of a non-judgmental attitude towards thoughts. You are not trying to promote wholesome thoughts. You are not trying to suppress unwholesome thoughts. Instead, you are now trying to recognize the common characteristics of both kinds of thoughts. Wholesome thoughts also have the nature to come and go. They are impermanent. Unwholesome thoughts also have the nature to come and go. They are also impermanent. So, trying to find satisfaction using wholesome thoughts is not going to be fruitful, not going to help us. Not completely trying to suppressing unwholesome thoughts, also not going to help us. Now, the method that Buddha mentioned is to recognize this transient nature, impermanent nature, and unsatisfactory nature of these both aspects, and then to free from these two sides, these two extremes, try to find the middle. So as you correctly mentioned, so that middle is the emptiness. So how about a mind free from thinking? How about a mind which is free from any association, not grasping anything? So that is a peaceful mind. That is a still mind. A mind has its own purity. That is why Buddha again and again highlights Pabassara midam bhikkave chittang tanchako agantukehu pakkilesehu pakkilitang. Monks, this mind has its original nature as a pure, kind of a reflective mind, kind of a, say, sublime mind. So that is the original nature of the human mind. But unfortunately, we have sort of wrongly understood or misunderstood, and we are trying to impose various temporary states onto the mind, losing our that original nature. So Buddha's teaching helps us back to reach that original nature, coming back our home in a way. So that home is peaceful. That home is not pleasurable or delightful, but it has its own peacefulness, has its equanimous quality. Etan santang, etan panitang, yadidang upekha. So Buddha mentioned, so it is peaceful, it is sublime, that is equanimous. So this is the unattached mind, detached mind in a way, the empty mind. Etan santang, etan panitang. So it is santa, it is peaceful. Panita, it is sublime. So therefore, while dwelling there, so you need to, in a way, verify your mind is not attaching to anything at all right now. There may be sounds, but mind is not interested of those sounds. It is not going after them. The mind is not clinging to them. There may be various sights, but mind is not going and clinging to them. There may be tastes, smells, sensations, but mind has found its stillness. Mind has found its home, the original nature. So this is the one that we need to promote. Now we have a question, why we can't dwell at home? Why can't we maintain this kind of a very peaceful, calm, tranquil state of mind? What are the problems? What are the threats towards this mind? So there we understand still there's a tendency, there's a potential in the mind. So whenever kind of a lustful object is coming to the, say, our eyesight, there's a tendency to go and attach. Whenever kind of an ill will object comes in the vicinity, so there's a tendency still go and attach or go and have an ill will thoughts. So those tendencies have to be eliminated. So that is how we have to kind of step by step purify ourselves. So we have to honestly understand these tendencies, asavas, the influxes. So those have to be evident. We have to see that how again mind go and attach, again mind go and complain, again mind go and cling. So that we have to honestly recognize. So there we need to understand how kind of a resistance, how kind of a burden is there. How you feel uneasy when mind is doing that. You feel somewhat heavy when mind is doing that. You feel not comfortable when mind is doing that. So why not again make the mind free? So that is where Buddha very beautifully mentioned. So the mindfulness helps us to see this nature in the mind and to stop that. And the wisdom is helping to completely eliminate that tendency. There are various tendencies available in the mind, so you are being aware of that and you are slowly eliminating that without promoting it. So slowly then mind become more and more peaceful, more and more tranquil, and more empty in a way, so which is free from grasping. So it's a gradual process and you are in the correct direction, so don't worry, so don't doubt about it. So you have come to the middle path. So that is the path that Buddha has recommended. Yeah. Taruan Sarnai.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Chita Devi. Please ask the next question.
Right, thank you, Jennifer. Now, Bhante, stemming from all these couple of questions that came initially, the Buddha says that everything is cause and effect, Hetupala Dharmata. So all these thoughts are also just arising because of cause and effect. So, but we have to form a self to be able to identify these, deal with these, stilling the mind, all those things, crushing the thoughts. So then we have to make a self. Otherwise, we are unable to deal with these thoughts if we just wait. So my question is, are these anyway inevitable? I mean, they are going to happen anyway, whatever we are doing or not doing. if I have got it wrong, please clarify that. But my question is, don't we have to make a self to deal with these lobha dosha thoughts?
Yeah, that is one level actually. So recognizing, say, as a person, so I should not think bad thoughts, I should not think wrong thoughts, unwholesome thoughts, I should think good thoughts. So this is one level. This is one level of samma sankappa, that is the mundane type of samma sankappa. And when you are reaching the supramundane type of samma sankappa, there Buddha give some sort of equal emphasis to both sides. So all these wholesome thoughts have the nature to come and go. They are impermanent. All these unwholesome thoughts have the nature to come and go. They are also impermanent. So no point of finding refuge in any of these extremes. So instead of that, as you mentioned, so Buddha give kind of a more deeper, in a way, teaching. Because of ignorance, we do various constructions. We do various formations. As a result of that, the consciousness finds its footing. So the Nama Rupa is coming to the picture, and then the activation of various six, kind of our, what you call the faculties, then we start to feel, then we start to attach, we start to crave, and then the becoming and all these suffering now going to happen. So it's a kind of a gradual process. So understanding that I should be a good person is one level, but later you will understand even how you are making a self, how this I making happens, how this mind making happens, ahankara maminkara. So even that level Buddha mentioned. So therefore at that time, if you are trying to promote a self, then we are going against. Rather, when you step on to the, more deeper aspects of vipassana, there you understand it is not an ongoing self or a permanent self that we have. Instead, we have a mind-made self. Because of various illusions, delusions, ignorance, we are making a self. Now you are instructed to looking at that I-making, mind-making. So this is an interesting process. So previously you had a person, so that person becomes a good person. That good person is now further developing vipassana. He is now becoming aware of a middle path, aware of a state of mind which is completely free, completely still, completely peaceful. And there you will understand how this mind makes an I, how this mind promotes an I, promotes a person. So that is also based on the illusion, ignorance. Therefore, different stages that we have to talk when we are talking about the vipassana.
So Bhante, as we get more and more deeper into this path, so we then look at it as a cause and effect.
Sorry, can you repeat? Can you repeat the question?
As we now you said initially we in the mundane level we have to say I have to do this. I have to look at this thought. It is this. This is an unwholesome thought, and I have to replace it with if it's ill will, with loving kindness and so forth, and go down those 5 things. But later on, as we get deeper into this path,
yes,
we can look at it as a Hetupala Dharma, cause and effect.
Yeah, cause and effect.
We can't be an observer.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you can even apply the non-self, the teaching of non-self. So, when you are applying the teaching of non-self, anatta, so there you can't have a person, no. Instead, what you will understand how a person is made in the mind, how a person is created in the minds with the help of wrong thinking.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation though, isn't it, Bhante?
Yeah. So you are committing suicide in a way.
Because, a lot of stress is done to have sila, samadhi, panya, and, there is no self and no person and whatever, then, it's very profound, so
Exactly.
sometimes it can be very taxing as well.
Thing is, that is why we should apply these techniques at the proper time. So if you are trying to apply the non-self teaching at the very beginning, then it is completely wrong. So that is why Buddha first mentioned mundane type of sammaditthi, mundane type of samma sankappa. So that should be there. That should be our base first. That would be the best, the first step. So after we are comfortable there, now we are slowly improving, developing wisdom and seeing the reality of various things, of various phenomena. So wisdom is developing. So slowly, this wisdom is gaining power. So when it is reaching to more mature level, then you may be capable and you are, say, not afraid to apply the more powerful teachings of the Buddha. That is not merely based on the, say, faith. Rather, you yourself have understood it through your experiential knowledge, because you have understood things as they truly are. So that is therefore to the deeper levels of vipassana that you may be capable of applying the teaching of non-self. So we should not apply such teaching prematurely. Then we are in a trouble. Yeah.
Yes, Bhante, continue, Bhante.
Yes. So that's what I have to say. So we need to apply these various insights at the correct time.
Yes, when we are meditating, it's for me, I find seeing all this anicca and anatta, I can see. But when we go into the daily humdrum lives, sometimes, you become a self because you have to, sometimes, as somebody earlier, one question, that you have to things come out from your mouth, before you can even see that you have made a self already. Though in a meditation, it is quite peaceful, and you can see this anicca and anatta. So
you don't need to.
Why we see that there in real life? Sometimes we don't see it.
Yeah. The thing is, slowly you are able to enhance your practice. So it is not that you have a kind of a selected time for the practice. Rather, your whole life become a opportunity to practice. So the whole life become a kind of a practice. So therefore, it's a matter of expanding our practice. So don't worry. And basically at the beginning, we are in a way to limited level. We experience some deep truths during our sitting session, during our walking session. True. But slowly those may be going to be available at other times as well. So they become more and more available with us. And we start to dwell with them. So it's a kind of a gradual process, and we should not try to impose them forcefully. Rather allow them to naturally expand. Yeah.
Because actually we were, the Lukuhamduru used to say, so when these sudden things happen, that's what not me, not mine, not myself. So sometimes I do that also, Bhante, because it was some things happen which shouldn't have happened, and I just say that to myself. I don't know whether that's an antidote. I don't know.
That's why we should evaluate that. So am I trying to find out a kind of a escapism here? Or else am I properly applying the technique at the proper time? So likewise, we have to evaluate whether you are doing it correct.
Because there is no self, no Bhante, so if there is a unwholesome sort of ill-will thought or whatever, act of ill-will or whatever, then we are not really to blame for it, because there is no self.
True. That's true.
But we can see that. If we can see that, then we are going forward. Is
exactly.
that right?
Yes. So that's why, at least we have experientially see that during our sitting session, during our walking session. So that means we have our own experience. It is not a mere blind sort of faith. Rather, we have our own experience. So
absolutely.
And then we are sort of eligible to use such experience or such insight to other activities as well.
Situations.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
right.
Yes, correct.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think, Jennifer, there are some questions came from Venerable Pasada. Probably you can put them. At least a couple of them we can discuss.
Yes, Bhante. It's quite long, so I sent it to you via chat, so you can read along.
Please, can you read the question, please?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 questions about Vedana, about pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant feelings. The 2 questions are related to each other. So the first question is, just as for the jhana, neither perception nor no perception, nirvesana na asana, Buddha did not name the third feeling, adukkha and asukha, in a positive way, but in a double negation, neither painful nor pleasant. Buddha did not say what the third feeling is, but only what it isn't. Regarding the jhana, this is generally respected in translations, leaving it as neither nor, but regarding the feeling, the double negation is often bypassed in translations by using positive terms like neutral, indifferent, or equanimous. Is there not a danger of leaving out something maybe meaningful? Buddha might have had valuable reasons for choosing a double negation. I don't know.
Yeah, so basically, now this is referring the neither what you call perception nor non-perception. So this is neva sanya na sanyayatana. This is the 8th jhana, what you call this in arupa jhana, immaterial jhana. So actually all the 4 types of immaterial jhana are equanimous. So that is what the teaching says. So actually when you are gradually developing jhana, so the first jhana is with 5 jhana factors, and it is with takka vichara, the applied thought and the sustained thought. And once you eliminate that, then the mind become more rapturous, and that is the second jhana. And you eliminate rapture, and then the mind become more happy, in a sense more contented. So that is the third jhana. And when you are reaching the 4th jhana, so even that kind of contentment or the happiness is eliminated, and you are coming more kind of a matured level of equanimity. That is the 4th jhana. And all the 4 other beyond, I mean the arupa jhana, are kind of an, we can say, kind of a extension of 4th jhana, where it has the same taste of equanimity. So that is how the teaching explains. So therefore, simply by negating neither pleasant nor unpleasant, or neither perception nor non-perception, so it doesn't mean that the kind of equanimity is sort of neglected. Rather, the mind is dwelling in the equanimity. So it is there. It is the main quality. So the equanimity is the base in a way. So that is the fundamental, that is the foundation on which the 4th jhana and the beyond the other jhanas are based on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the second question, back to the Matcha Sutta, reflections using a geometrical analogy. There are 2 ends and a middle. I understand it as a continuum where there ultimately is no middle. Because if the middle of the line, namely the point where the curve culminates and breaks, changes its direction, that theoretical middle point will never find it. It is infinitely tiny, namely ultimately non-existent. Just as here and now, time and space ultimately can be thin sliced and can be thin sliced and infinitum and thus are inexistent or non-existent. Coreless concepts, likewise neither painful nor pleasant, may be also ultimately is inexistent. So the reporting experience, most times I'm not aware of feelings as consciousness is with another object, then I also can't say the feeling is neither nor, as it simply doesn't manifest. But when I am aware of feeling, it is either pleasant or unpleasant. Sometimes the pleasantness or unpleasantness is more subtle, not so strong and obvious. But if I take time to feel into it, there will almost always be a taste or a coloring to the feeling. Exceptionally, if really I can't discern a coloring, if really it is neither nor, then as soon as I recognize it, it will receive a coloring and fall or collapse into the pleasant category or into the unpleasant category. Because the neither nor is felt either as pleasantly peaceful or as unpleasantly boring. So, maybe ultimately speaking, there is no adukkha and asukha vedana, because when consciousness arises, adukkha and asukha vedana always collapses to one side or the other, thus becoming pleasant or unpleasant. Please, respected Bhante, can you comment these lines and correct this presentation?
Yeah, so basically, as you are practicing Vedananupassana, it is true. So at the beginning, we are able to recognize three types. Say pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, or pleasurable feelings, painful feelings, and sometimes the equanimous feelings. So likewise, three categories may be available. But as you are continuing your practice, so these differences become more and more vague. These differences more and more becomes not evident. So mostly some kind of a equanimity based kind of feeling is there. Now you can't really distinguish whether it is pleasurable or whether it is painful or whether it is equanimous, because now it has become kind of a monotone. It is a correct practice. Don't worry about it. So basically, so the Vipassana practice, bringing ourselves more and more to free from perceptions, free from differences. So instead of having so much of differences, so that is the function of the consciousness, to find various distinct nature, distinctions or differences. Now instead of happening that, as we develop Vipassana, so those distinct features become eliminated or faded, and your mind become monotone. So ultimately, kind of monotony is there, kind of boredom is there. So now the mind is not pleasurable, not painful, and not grasping even any, say, the middle, that is the equanimity. So that is what mentioned in the Majjhya Sutta, where both sides, both extremes have to be dropped, or both extremes should not cling to, and at the same time you should not cling to the middle as well, using the wisdom. Ubosante viditvana majje manta na lippati. So you should know the both extremes, the two sides, and again you should not cling to the middle as well. So you should know the pleasurable thoughts and pleasurable feelings and the painful feelings, and once you know that, you are not attached to them. But now don't go and attach to the middle either. So that is where the wisdom has to. So with wisdom, now you are not even attached to the middle. So the mind is empty. So the mind is free from any kind of an attachment. So mind is not associating anything. So that is the point that Buddha is directing us. So we should recognize extremes, and those extremes have to be avoided, and then we may start to dwell in the middle, and using wisdom, don't go and attach to the middle either. So then the mind has its own freedom, nor in the extremes, nor in the middle. So mind is not finding any sort of a footing. Mind has not established any place. So mind doesn't need either. Now suppose, as I frequently giving the example, say when an airplane is sort of catching its momentum. Suppose it's now rapidly going on the runway in order to take off. Now the momentum, now the energy, the strength is taken from this friction available on the earth, on the runway. But after that momentum is taken, now it has taken off. Now it doesn't need the support of the runaway. Now it has the capacity to be completely free on the air. Similarly, our mind also has such capacity. So we are using various conditioned phenomena to understand their true nature. That's why the importance of the observation. So you put your attention to various phenomena, you recognize them, you observe their nature, and the potential is now have with the mind. The capacity is having with the mind. The momentum is having with the mind. So with that momentum, so allow the mind to let go everything. Now mind is not attached to the pleasurable, nor to the painful, nor to the middle, that is the equanimous, but it's more equanimous by the way, but it is not a kind of an attached equanimity. You are not going and grasping with kind of an equanimous feeling, but it's you are based on the equanimity. So therefore, there is no any kind of complication here. Rather, mind become more and more simplified. The practice become more and more simple in a way, and all the perceptions, marks, signs become less and less, and mind get into a kind of a monotony. And that monotony has to be maintained for quite a time. Then mind finds its original nature in a way. Not colored with anything. Not colored with lust, not colored with hatred, and not deluded with delusion. Rather, mind is having its kind of an awakened nature. Non-deluded nature. It has kind of a mindfulness, awareness, but not attached with anything. So that is the kind of a direction that we have to move forward. So I think the answer helps you to remove any kind of doubts or perplexities related to the practice. I think we have spent enough time today. So let's wind up today's session. So by listening to the Dhamma teaching and again discussing in various ways, so we have accumulated a lot of merits. Let's share these merits with all the beings. Let's recite the traditional verses. Ettavata cha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata cha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata jamhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sasanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu desanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu mamparang. Idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiya. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiya. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.